How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today we're taking a look at a game called Northgard, which was recently released onto Steam Early Access. It is by Shiro Games. What is the game about? What is Northgard about? It's a real-time strategy game, which is based largely in Norse mythology. The game centers around like several different Nordic tribes sort of vying for control of a newly discovered continent. Now, the game is currently in early access, which means that it is still being developed. The current time frame to completion is around about 5 months if things go to plan. But at the moment, there is currently only a single player option. A multiplayer and campaign are coming soon, but the single player option is simply against bots. You can have a total of up to 3 players, 4 including yourself, per game. The games are randomly generated. So far, I've put about 3 hours into the game myself. I won one time and I lost the other time. Take that for what you will. We're going to just do it on normal now that I have a bit of a better grasp of the game's mechanics. And now we get to select our clan. Now the clans are like civilizations in a way, and they all have their own unique bonuses. For example, this clan's starting bonuses are that I start with the weaponsmith knowledge, which increases warrior's attack, as well as my military units eat 30% less food and provide happiness. They also have a fame bonus that is applied once you acquire a certain amount of fame, like 200 fame for that bonus, 500 for that bonus. Then there is the Clan of the Stag. That was the Clan of the Wolf right there. Clan of the Stag and Clan of the Goat. And Clan of the Goat. There are 2 more at least that are still pending, that are still being developed. I think by and large at the moment, most players feel that Clan of the Goat is probably the most powerful due to the fact that you can actually build like sheep pastures. We're going to go ahead and start with Clan of the Stag. Maps are randomly generated, and we're right into it right away. So I'm going to be explaining a bit what's going on here and how to control it. These are your little villagers, but you build buildings by clicking on the build button in the lower right corner. The first thing we probably want to build is a scout camp. So I'm just going to place that down within my little area right here. You have to build it within your borders. And one of my villagers immediately runs over and starts hammering on it to build it. We also would probably like to build an additional house to make sure that our housing capacity doesn't like cripple our population growth, because if you take a look at the main town hall building, this is where our new villagers will come in, and the current cap is at 5. So the town hall provides 5 like capacity for villagers, or house up to 5 villagers. Okay, our scouting camp is done, so now we can click on one of the villagers and assign them to become a scout by right-clicking on the scout camp. Once the villager becomes a scout, he's going to be wandering off, and he's going to look at these other tiles throughout the world that you can see. Right now they're black, they're covered in a fog of war, but the scout can uncover them. That is his primary goal, his purpose in the game. And a lot of the entire game, the entire map is segmented into these districts. So you're not going to have to build like town halls yourself to establish outposts in additional areas. You simply take over land once the scout has uncovered it all. Now, there are a couple of strategies going on here. For one, we can wait until the scout completes his scouting here before we actually build our woodcutter's hut, which is going to be required to build wood, because we want to be looking for perhaps a forested tile, because they provide a bigger bonus to woodcutting. And I think one of the very important things to note here is that the distance to a building does not matter in terms of production. For example, if I built a woodcutter right here in the trees, it doesn't make it any more efficient than if I built it over here in the corner. If we click build, do woodcutters camp. See, I can build the woodcutters camp right over there. I could also build it in the middle of these trees. It's not going to really matter in terms of production, and that's a common trend throughout a lot of it. So you have these little segmented districts that you build buildings in, and the game is focused largely around that. There are no production chains. You don't have to worry about converting one food type into another. Okay, we have our second district revealed here. It is only stones, and it is occupied by hostiles. So I think we're just going to go ahead and build our Woodcutters Lodge in the first district like that. Our scout is going to continue to uncover these, blacked out tiles. And we wanted to build at Woodcutters Lodge because we need additional wood. Like, we start with a lot of wood because of we're this civilization, but other civilizations that start with less wood, and it's like a higher priority to get the wood up and going as soon as possible. In the earlier parts of the year, like during the summer, food production will be at normal rates, and as you can see right now, the idle peasants, they sort of just default to, and here's the wood, here right there's the forest. Well, of course I would jump the gun on that. Never mind, we're going to go ahead and assign one of our villagers to the Woodcutters Lodge. Well, I thought it was rather nice that, you know, the idle peasants, the minute they come out of the town hall, they actually start working on providing food for the settlement right away. You don't actually have to assign them to do that. There are specialized food buildings like right here we have a fertile land patch, and we can build a farm on there. But by default, they will automatically, you know, scrounge around the place, scrounge the forest, and pick up food and bring it back to the town hall. So we probably want to colonize another area. I'm going to be colonizing this piece of land. I would have normally selected the forest over there because it improves the wood production rate, but we're going to build here instead. Colonizing additional lands, it has a couple of requirements. Number one is that the land is actually free of enemies, and the other is that you have to spend a little bit of food. The cost for settling it scales up depending upon how many of these districts you have. So now that I actually have that done, it is currently July, maybe a little bit late, but we're going to just try starting a farm anyway. And then you can click on one of the regular villagers and tell them to, you know, right click on this building once that villager is selected, and they'll run over here into this district and begin constructing that farm. So it's a very district by district thing. Let's get this wolf over here. Wolf is causing some trouble, but if we have our peasants, our villagers gang up on it, we should win. Yeah, so by default, the villagers will stay within their own little districts, but you can tell them to move from district to district, and that's what was happening here. So normally, when I put down this farm, or these fields, the peasants, the villagers did not want to go over here to work on it, to build it. I had to command one to do it manually. And you can only assign one villager per construction project. Okay, so our farm is completed. I'm going to send him, the worker that was previously building the farm, to work on the farm. Now, farms are nice, but they only really help in the summer. In the winter, they're not quite as effective as scavenging, so you might want to keep that in mind. What else do we want to do? Well, we have a problem with, like, bandits. Not bandits. We have a problem. I'm going to get another woodcutter on here because we need more wood. We have a problem with some wolves over here in this area. In this district, there is at least one more wolf left, and we want to deal with them. And how we're going to deal with them is by actually building a training camp as soon as I have enough wood for it. At the moment, I only have 42 wood, and you can't actually speed up or slow the game down. So you're always going to be playing it at this steady speed. And overall, you might recall games like the recent one that came out that had 3 different factions you could play. But the idea behind it was that it was like a simpler real-time strategy game. And I think this game, Northgard has a very similar appeal to it, that they're not trying to be very competitive. The game depth is not that deep, the game. You can learn it in a relatively short amount of time to be fairly competent at playing it. We almost have enough wood to build the training camp. At 80, we'll have enough. And there we go. Put the training camp down just like that, and get a villager to come over here and build it. If we can. Yes. The reason it was showing a little X on it is because I already had assigned a villager to come over and build it. The training camp takes a particularly long time to get up and going. And once it is completed, you'll be able to recruit units, and you basically just have one type of unit. If we take a look over here in the lower right corner, the available units are pretty simple. Like, you have a villager, a woodcutter, we already saw that, a farmer who's working the field, a scout, a lore master, which is basically like a researcher, which applies to this lore up here. Lore is like the equivalent of research. You have a miner, they mine stone and iron. You have a merchant, makes you gold, a sailor, a scald, a smith. I'm not sure what the scald does. I'm not sure what the smith does. The fisherman, more food stuff. Hunter, more food stuff. And the healer, which is actually very important for keeping your army alive. Then you have, in terms of army itself, you have the warrior and the war chief. So it's a very simple army composition. Nothing too advanced at all. You're not going to have to worry about which unit types, synergize best together. It is simply, well, you have this band of melee units and you send them off to war. So our training camp has been completed, and we're going to start making some warriors simply by selecting one of our villagers and right-clicking on the training camp itself. So right here we have our first warrior. Let's get him over there. I think we want to have one more yet before we actually confront the wolves. Like having 2 versus 1 is a very nice ratio. So there we go. We got 2 warriors. Now these warriors are not upgraded. They're just the basic kind of warrior that you're going to find in the game, but you can upgrade buildings. And I wanted him to walk over here, as a matter of fact. You can upgrade buildings, and it's much like a lot of strategy games where you need a certain amount of resources to do so. Let's go ahead and get this wolf. The wolf really should not present any significant challenge to my my warriors. Are they called warriors? Yeah, they're called warriors. So now we are able to colonize this land. So I'm going to expend the required food to do so. We have a rune stone here. This is excellent for researching. And we also have some stone, which is very important for upgrading. All upgrades for buildings require stone. In other words, our town hall, we're going to need 10 stone to actually upgrade it. So I'm going to have to go ahead and find a mine, place that down, get another villager to come over here and build it. I think we actually might want to select this farmer because it is January, so he's not producing much food anyway. Like I'm losing some food. It's not that big of a deal. It's not critical. But you can't just select a farm. You can't just say, oh, take this farmer, build that. No, you actually have to turn him into a regular civilian peasant. What are they called? Civilians? Villager. You have to turn him into a regular villager first. And then once he's equipped for that, then you can go over here and actually begin work on the quarry. Now you might be wondering, obviously my units here, one of my warriors is injured, and you can heal them by building the healer's hut. It requires 60 wood, which I'm not going to have for a little bit yet. And I do have enough lore though now to begin research on a new technology. So this is pretty much like lore is like the equivalent of technology in Northgard, and it is instantaneous. So once you accumulate enough lore, you're able to choose one of the available lore researches. Let's just call them like research. I'm going to go ahead and go with trading because we actually, gold is a very important thing. They're called like crowns in this with a K, but gold is pretty important. So I just research it, immediately completes. So in other words, you don't have to invest in it. You're able to select what is most important to your civilization at that time. Now, in my right corner, you can see I have 2 injured units and I have 1 building with no workers. So this building no longer has workers in it because I removed that farmer, turned him into a villager, and then sent him over there to build a mine, and then took that same villager who finished building the mine and I turned him into a miner. So now he is actually walking around here, digging up the stone from this pillar and turning it into stone that I can use. So far, he's completed 1. And like I've said before, it really doesn't matter how close you are to the resource. So in other words, if I build a mine here or build a mine right next to the stone, it really doesn't matter in terms of gathering it. But let's actually take this villager and add them back to the farm now that it's March. So we should actually be, start preparing more food. What is food used for? Well, the villagers consume it. And that is basically the extent of it. It is just required for consumption, and it also, you need it to expand your territory. Like when you buy additional, like colonizing this area, for example, costs food. If you run out of food, your villagers will starve. They will starve quite gradually, and it depends upon how much food you are in the hole for. So in other words, if you are losing 20 food per turn, that will be more significant than if you're in the hole like -5 food per turn, and they gradually starve. That's how the effects of no food play out in the game. And it's similar to wood. Wood is used to construct a lot of buildings, and it is also used as firewood. So in other words, as your population grows, you're going to have to be putting down more woodcutters as well to balance that out, to make sure that your peasants have enough wood to heat their homes. Gold is like crowns. It is basically the currency that is used for a lot more advanced buildings, as well as hiring units, and the war chief definitely costs you. Like if you look here at the war chief, to hire one, it would cost me 150 gold and 5 iron. Iron is much more specialized, and it is used to improve your units or your professions. So in other words, once I have iron, right now I can't click on this, but I would be able to like improve my farmers to make sure that they provide more bonuses when farming. Now, one thing, like I mentioned before, I wanted to get going here was a healer's hut. So let's just build a healer hut over here, right next to the warriors. I'm actually capped, so I also want to build another house. Ideally, where you want to build a lot of these buildings, you want to sort of aggregate them. So in other words, the houses should all go together as much as possible, because that way, when you get sheep, you can actually apply the bonus that the sheep applies, or the sheep gives, to all of the houses in that district, because like you can move a sheep between districts, and having a sheep in those districts will reduce the amount of firewood that is required for heating those homes that are in that district. But it only applies to that one single district that the sheep's in, so you obviously want to sort of group those together. We have another bit of lore that we can research, and we're going to go with the woodcutters, which produce 15% more wood. Definitely a good idea when you're investing in economy. Now I'm going to go ahead with the healer's hut completed. We're going to man it with a single civilian, and now you can see the healer is walking about, and he will go ahead and heal things. He can heal the warrior. You know, providing your units are within your territory, apparently they are capable of healing them. So he's like healing the warrior. I think I've seen this bug out from time to time. Like sometimes I'll be in my territory and the healer will not sort of recognize that any of my units need healing unless they actually are in the same district. So I'm not sure if that's a bug or if I'm just missing some mechanic there, but it has been inconsistent for me. So I really don't know what to say about that. But as you can see, the warrior is over here, the healer is over here. The healer can heal the warrior from over there. Nah, can't complain about it really. But yeah, I've noticed some inconsistencies there. So this winter we have a blizzard coming up, and you'll notice this happens a lot. There are events that are randomized that will occur, that will happen to your village over time, and that is largely what a lot of the game is about. So it is not that complex, it is not that in-depth. But I think I would also like to go ahead and load up a little bit of an end game here so you can see a bit more what that looks like. Unfortunately, there is actually no button you can click on to access the main menu. It's rather interesting. You have to press escape to get out. And I'm just going to go ahead and load up a game that I've been playing for around about an hour. Okay, this was shortly after my victory. I wiped out every single... If you look at the victory conditions, I won by a domination victory. I wiped out all of the clans. That is one way to win. There are several ways to win. Some maps will have additional victory conditions, like there will be specific set pieces you will have to control to win. But by and large, the victory conditions are domination, fame, trade, and wisdom. If you think about this in terms of something like civilization, you'll realize these are quite similar to that. So in a way, the game might have a bit more to do with things such as... is this my stuff? No, it's not, apparently. The game has a little bit more in terms of civilization when it comes to winning the game itself. You do not have to destroy your opponents to win. You do not have to destroy the opponent's base like in, say, Age of Empires to actually win it. You have quite a few more options than that. When it comes to playing against the AI, you'll generally be fighting them quite a bit, I found. But the first game that I did play that I lost, I actually lost to an AI who won a commerce victory. So it is certainly possible. And I think it adds a bit more variety to real-time strategy. But as you can see, this is largely what it looks like when you're pretty close. Like I defeated all of my opponents here through military might, and the army composition was relatively simple. If we look at my troops here, I just have one warband. I have 10 melee units, the warriors, and then the one war chief. That was it. So by and large, you know, it's a really good looking game. I think it shows a lot of promise, but if you're looking for something that would actually be capable of being played now against something other than bots, I really wouldn't recommend it. I'd say hold off, wait a bit more until the campaign and the multiplayer become developed. But otherwise, it looks very competent. The art style is great. I love it. It reminds me of Endless Legend. I guess that's the best way to put it. It has a lot more variety than a lot of real-time strategy games that are currently out there in terms of victory conditions. Like Rise of Nations might be one of the things it's best to compare it to at this point. Rise of Nations was a real-time strategy game that actually kind of mirrored a lot of what Civilization did, except in a real-time strategy formula. So in other words, things were happening live, sort of similar to this. You're not based on turns. You're not playing it based on turns, but you have the same sort of flexibility in terms of how you can win the game. And that's replicated here in this as well. So it's all based in this sort of Norse mythology world. There are monsters around. We didn't really get a good chance to look at many of them, but there are monsters throughout the world. I think a lot of them have actually been cleared off by the AIs in this one. Like right here, we have these monsters. So a lot of danger lurks in the game world in the early parts of it. You will find a lot of creatures that are hostile towards you, not just your opponents. So you're not just fighting against your opponents, you're actually fighting against the environment to some extent as well, especially on harder difficulties. But yeah, if you're somebody who has never really played real-time strategy before, I think this game, it would be especially good at, sort of getting you into it. It is not overly complex. It's more friendly towards perhaps MOBA players. And it's different enough to be worth your time, I think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.